Good evening. I call the meeting of the Winterville Planning and Zoning Board to order. We have a quorum. I'd like to open by welcoming the members of the board. I appreciate your coming. You're all volunteers, and you're all working to make our town a better place, and I appreciate that. Also want to thank the staff for coming. It's time away from your family, and I appreciate the dedication to your jobs. And to the visitors in the gallery, thank you for coming and being a part of it. Brian, do we have any excused absences?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. Greg Monroe had a work conflict, so he did ask for an excused absence.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, we need to take a motion to excuse Mr. Monroe, or Dr. Monroe, I'm sorry.
Greg Monroe's shoes are big to fill. I got to learn the ropes. Is there a motion for the excused absence?
I'll make a motion to approve his absence.
Is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved.
Mr. Vice Chair, who gets credit for the second? Thank you.
Okay, the first thing we want to talk about is the approval of the minutes. You all have had time.
Go back one to your approval. I think we approved the excused absence, not the agenda yet. So go ahead and.
All right, help me out here. Okay, so we did the absences. Now let's do the agenda. Anybody got a motion for the agenda?
I'll make a,
Okay, we got a motion and a second for the agenda. Any discussion? Okay? All in favor of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Approval of the agenda. Okay, now we're going to the minutes. Got it right this time. Ladies and gentlemen, you received the minutes in your packet. What is the pleasure of the board? Motion by Ms. Colburn. Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. On to new business.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. It's good to see everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. So we got one action item for you guys tonight. You guys all received your agenda packets last week. Hope you had a chance to review. So this is a rezoning request. So this is something a little bit different than we've seen before. Actually, it's the first plan unit development that we've seen proposed in the town of Winterville city limits. So kind of excited about this one. The planner in me really likes this concept. So Southbrook PUD stands for Plan Unit Development. That's for parcels 15006, 11636, 82096, 82094. It's what we commonly refer to as the UNC property. So the applicant is the Coley Group. That's care of Scott Moore. You saw his name on the application. That location is down on Church Street Extension, and it wraps around to Lori Ellis Road. So that's adjacent to the Holly Grove subdivision, Lori Meadows, Mellon Downs, Brookstone subdivisions. So site data is 245 acres and some change. Current zoning designation is AR, which stands for Agricultural Residential. Proposed zoning district is Conditional District Plan Unit Development with aspects of R6 and MR. So just a little bit about Plan Unit Developments. I feel we need to kind of just get some clarification on what a PUD really does and what it is. But it's a very similar process to a rezoning, and more specifically a conditional rezoning. Your conditional rezonings usually put conditions on it like heated square footage or types of amenities or whatnot. This actually goes a step further. You'll see a site development plan. So each PUD is a customized zoning district that specifically identifies the location of buildings, uses, design of architectural features, open spaces, etc. So they do allow an alternative design from our standard zoning ordinance dimensional requirements. And the design of a PUD is governed by a site-specific development plan, like I just mentioned. So it permits the design of what we'll call a cluster subdivision. Some of you guys will remember that from our land use planning process. So the design ensures protection of environmentally sensitive features such as streams, riparian buffers, ponds, wetlands, and there is a bonus to a density that, so they can limit the density to what permitted under conventional zoning, or may choose to offer a density bonus, allowing additional density that would otherwise be allowed. That's not going to be the case in this one, but I thought I would mention it. So, per our zoning ordinance, when we go to our zoning ordinance and look up the applicability of a PUD and where it can go, there are special requirements. So these are special requirements straight from the zoning ordinance, but an application for a PUD shall be approved only if the following findings are made. I'm going to run through each one of these because I think they're very pertinent. The application of the plan unit development requirements to the property will produce a development of equal or higher quality than otherwise required by the strict application of the district that would otherwise govern. The application of the plan unit development requirements to the property will encourage innovative arrangement of buildings and open space to provide an efficient, attractive, flexible, and environmentally sensitive design. The application of the plan unit development requirements to the property will produce a development functioning as a cohesive, unified project. That one is particularly linked to this property because of the amount of acreage they're actually proposing the development. So 245 acres is no small feat. So I want to just stop and kind of focus on this for just a second. So it actually gives us a cohesive project, so we're not at the mercy of multiple developers going in and hodgepodge and different things. So this way we get the same development company, the same product throughout, same design features, and the whole thing is controlled by that PUD. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that. And then finally, the application of the plan unit development requirements to the property will not substantially injure or damage the use, value, or enjoyment of the surrounding property, nor hinder or prevent the development of surrounding property in accordance with the adopted plans and policies of the town. So one of the big things we keep talking about one of the things we talked about was environmentally sensitive areas. So this is one of the principal purposes of the PUD. The PUD procedure is to protect environmentally sensitive areas through the use of innovative arrangement of buildings and spaces. So I'll go back to that cluster subdivision. You'll hear me talk about that a little bit more in just a second. It's the intent of the PUD process that the significant consideration in planning and design of PUDs shall be given to the following elements. So floodplains, wetlands, stormwater management, streams, etc. So those are not directly, or these are just examples of some of the environmental features we'll be looking at trying to mitigate on this particular piece of property. So moving into our process a little bit before we get into the actual site. So the adjacent property owners were mailed notification of this rezoning request November 2nd. Notification was posted out on the site October 28th. And then additionally, some of you attended these. 2 community meetings were hosted by the applicant in this room on October 20th. That was a pretty well attended meeting, and I thought it was very productive. So here's the site. You can see outlined in blue there. So you got Lori Ellis here, Church Street Extension here, so then Old 11, then Winterville Parkway out here. So you got it does wrap around. So that's the big chunk of 245 acres there. So you got Holly Grove, Lori Meadows, Mellon Downs, Brookstone. Just an aerial shot of it. Just want to make sure you guys see it there again in blue. This is the preliminary wetland stream delineation map they did. So you see all the blue in here is preliminarily mapped wetlands. So you got some pretty good pockets of wetlands in here. The blue right here are stream features that will be buffered, riparian buffer 50 feet on each side. And then if you can see this gray kind of area here is the Piedmont natural gas line running through there. So you can see just from this map itself, there is a lot going on with this piece of property. Here again, so here is the site-specific development plan that the Coley Group has produced. A little bit hard to see on there. I think I did want to point out that all those circles represent interconnectivity. You see there's existing stubs here and here into those subdivisions. They'll be going here, so this is phase 2 of Brookstone, be connecting there, going south here, back east here. So you got a total of 10 properties, or 10 stub streets there. There's a little bit better of a picture of it. So you can see the green here, and Scott will get into a little bit more during the applicant's presentation, but these are generally line up with the wetlands, so all this will be kept open space. Then you got pockets of the attached single family, and then all the lighter beige would be single family residential. Current zoning, as stated before, is AR, agricultural residential. So existing land use, so you can see there, that green just means it's wooded or vacant. So nothing out there right now, and you've got a bunch of single family around it. So this is the future land use plan. So the whole site is deemed a suburban residential character area. If we look at our plan, the suburban residential character area is primarily a single family residential subdivision that could allow some smaller lot sizes if open space is exceeded it. So here's our breakdown of the suburban residential. The big one here is we're looking at density 1 to 3 per acre. So the 245 acres, you've got proposed 612. That's just over 2 dwelling units per acre for the property. So well below the density requirements of that. So obviously we like to look at our recommendations and policies in the land use plan. So strategies under land use, to utilize the future land use map and character areas when considering land use decisions. So obviously the subdivision or the land use map says this one's a suburban residential character area. So we want to keep it residential, which obviously the rezoning does. Encourage a logical progression of development and extension of all utilities. Obviously, we're not leapfrogging, so you're not going down the road and trying to put utilities out of the way. So this would connect to existing utilities in the adjacent subdivisions. Encourage open space and amenities in a new development. So obviously, with 245 acres, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for open space and amenities as the site plan showed. There are economic development policies. Like to reinforce the town's identity as a family-friendly community, and we do that by supporting rezonings for residential uses in the suburban and residential areas. Obviously, we've already stated it's a suburban residential area. Require and incentivize the connection of stub streets whenever the connections they have out there already per the site development plan. And then require sidewalks in new developments per the character area dimensional requirements. And they do propose a sidewalk out there. And actually, I'll let Scott go into that a little bit more because they're going to add a little bit more detail than what we already require. So then conservation subdivisions, you can see, so this is our example in the land use plan. So this would be a traditional neighborhood, and this would be our conservation subdivision. So it's just clustering those lots tighter and making sure we do, tree saves, preservation of wetlands, just in protecting those environmentally sensitive areas. So with all that said, the conditional use or the conditional district PUD rezoning request is consistent with the intent and the purpose of the zoning ordinance, future land use plan, and is compatible with the future development and trends in the surrounding area. So planning staff finds the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with the surrounding land uses. So staff does recommend approval of the request to rezone 245.43 acres from AR to a conditional district PUD, R6 PUD, and MR PUD. So our rezoning process is there. Public comments will be entertained in a second. Planning and zoning board will then make a recommendation to council. A public hearing will be scheduled at the December 12th council meeting, and ultimately council will hear this and take action on January 9th following a public hearing there. With that, I'll answer any questions you guys have of me. I'll note that Mr. Scott Moore is in attendance, representing the applicant. He's got a small presentation as well to give you a little bit more feedback from their side, but I'll answer any questions beforehand if you got any. All right. Take it away, and then once Scott is done, Mr. Chair will open it up to public comments.
Good evening. Man, Brian is a tall guy. Let's bring that down. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the board members, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Scott Moore. I represent the applicant, who is the Coley Group. And before I present this evening, I really just want to publicly thank Brian Jones and really all of their staff for all the time that they spent really in guiding us in this endeavor. They have done a tremendous job. Brian, I'm very grateful for your hard work, and thank you for everything that you have done. So, try not to repeat many of the things that Brian has brought before you, but I do want to cover a few things with you that are in addition to. So one is the evaluation of the property, and this is a picture of the land use plan. Now, as we evaluated the property, we quickly realized that our proposal will set the stage for future development, and it is the doorway to several large undeveloped properties in the southern and southeastern parts of Winterville. So it is imperative that we set the tone for good land use practices, not only for our property, but also for the adjacent properties around us. As Brian had kind of alluded to, in an effort really to establish this tone, we feel that there needs to be considerable focus on the adherence to the town's comprehensive land use plan. And as we review this plan, it indicates that the property is located in that suburban residential area, which calls for 2.3 units, or 2 to 3 units per acre, and smaller lots if minimum standards for open space and amenities are exceeded. As really we unpack the policies of the land use plan, the one that I'm going to focus specifically on as it relates to site design is Policy 6, which encourages the preservation and creation of quality open spaces. And really one of the ways to achieve that is through design and the formation of a conservation subdivision. Now, the conservation subdivision, as Brian has described being in this plan, it is an alternative design which encourages that clustering of small residential lots, which opens up and allows for more opportunities for open space and amenities for the community. So in essence, what you are doing is we're taking all the land that would normally be part of private residential lots that's shown on that conservation subdivision portion on the right. We're converting that land over to that open space, which creates more green spaces for the entire community, which is shown on the left. Now, as Brian also talked about, there's a key component to this process that's a little bit different that accompanies, and that is that planned unit development. The PUD is really just that document that explains the development aspects of the proposal. It's really an additional set of rules that governs the project. And as Brian has kind of talked about, as you read through those special requirements, the goal is to produce that high-quality, cohesive, unified development with an innovative arrangement of buildings and open spaces that will uphold, and I would add, to promote additional value, not take away, but to promote additional value of surrounding property in accordance with the policies of the town. So to kind of help explain how we want to deliver on the goals of the PUD, I'm going to share with you really our design process and how we arrived here. So one of the main objectives when you're creating community design is to identify all of the natural qualitative areas on the site. And those are the ones that are going to be outlined in green. And this would include, as Brian alluded to, the wetlands, significant stands of trees, streams, buffer areas, rock outcroppings if it's on it, really anything that's significant or natural to the site. And we want to try to preserve as many of those as possible. Once we identify those areas, we then look at the internal road network and then the clustering of our lot groupings, which are shown in those black circles around the open spaces. And as you can see, that carries that very significant or very similar appearance to the cluster design that is shown in that land use plan. Once those two areas are reviewed, we then focus on really creating what are known as user-end destinations, such as pocket parks and other open spaces. Those are the small areas that are outlined in black, with a heavy emphasis on promoting pedestrian activity for accessing those locations. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of the types of open spaces that I'm talking about when we have the community meetings in October. I went into great details about the open spaces that we have provided in our other communities, including this one in Sunset Bluffs, where the focus is really to create places and opportunities to bring our residents and our families and really together as a community. So if there's anything that I want you guys to come away with tonight, it is that we are building a community and not a subdivision. And one of the ways that we achieve that or achieve community is through the enhancement of our open spaces. Now, along that line, let me get the laser here. Excuse me 1 second. Along that line, one of the things that excites me about this community is the near 5-acre tract that's shown there in black that is in the center of the community, and it really lends itself to a great recreation area. And then that location is then mirrored on the other side by what Brian was talking about, all of that natural area. So it really creates a very unique opportunity as it comes for providing improved open spaces for the entire community. The other thing that motivates us about the development of this site is that we're offering over 1/3 of the entire site to open space, which is about 81 acres of that 245. And we're utilizing almost 20% of the site, which is over 48 acres, for usable open space. We feel that this will go a long way in connecting those residents and those families together. Now, as I said previously, our project is the doorway to several large undeveloped properties. And I believe that providing interconnectivity and street stubs will not only assist with our neighbors, but will also provide future access points, and our site here is in blue, through the property, future access points down to Reedy Branch Road, and then eventually through development out to the east to Old Tar Road, through that development of those parcels. And the reason that this is important is that it's going to disperse traffic in multiple locations on multiple streets, and not just the two entrances that you would typically find in the community. So if approved, we will have a traffic impact analysis completed to mitigate all of our impacts, but having those multiple access points will be key in dispersing traffic both with this project and also in the future. In addition to the connectivity, one of the aspects that we pay close attention to is the creation of shorter block lengths between intersections and putting bends in the road to eliminate really those long straight runs that you can see. That typically will, if you have long straight runs, that will invite speeding in the neighborhood. Obviously, that's not something that we want to do. So through this design, we want to create those shorter distances. We want to have drivers intentionally make turns. That has a natural traffic calming effect and slows vehicles down within the community. Another effort to slow vehicles in the community is to provide street trees along all of our streets. Now, this slide right here is the current street cross-section for Winterville. There's a 28-foot back-to-back distance from the curb. There's a 2-foot planting strip, 5-foot sidewalk, and an 11-foot strip on the other side. What we are proposing to do is leave the road and the curb exactly as the town has designed it, but we're going to increase that planting strip from 2 to 7 feet, where the sidewalk will be located, and then we'll have a 12-foot planting strip on the other side, and we will place street trees 50 feet on center on both sides of the street. Now, there are several reasons for this, but most importantly, it offers 2 safety features. One, it provides a physical barrier. You can see that here with this community with sidewalks and then trees. It provides that physical barrier between a car driving through a community and the pedestrian on the sidewalk. And 2, the trees will frame in the road will also cause drivers to slow down. Outside of safety, this design creates the symmetry with the street, the planting strip and the street trees, the front yard, and really the backdrop of the homes for the entire area. So this is the symmetry that we're looking at through this design specifically. We bring the homes closer for 3 reasons. So that you have a more direct frontage feel with the homes and also with the street. It allows your pedestrian-friendly neighbor to say hello and to be engaged in one another. It also allows for a larger rear yard, so you have a larger private space for families to entertain. And then finally, it narrows the viewing window into the rear yards from the front of the home, which is important because backyards are where we typically store all of our stuff, the hot tubs and the trash cans and the kids' toys. You don't see that much from the sidewalks and the streets when the homes are closer together, and as a result, there's more focus on the aesthetic of the front of the home. Let me explain this in a little bit more detail. This is one of our communities. It just so happens that we had 2 side loads, but it forces a longer gap. Now, this red lines would indicate when a driver or even a pedestrian who's walking can see into really more than half of this whole rear yard, and that would happen on both sides. Naturally, if you bring the homes closer, that viewing window shortens, so you have a less of an opportunity to see it coming on both of those sides. So that's another one of the reasons why we end up bringing those homes together and having the setbacks that we do. So, as I wrap up, I'm going to end on a personal note. I've been a part of our development team for over 16 years. We have been building communities in North Carolina since the 1980s. We're all local guys from North Carolina. We have made over 5,000 single-family homes, 600 multifamily homes. We build Class A communities, and we set, which is very important, we set the architectural standard and approve every single home that's going to be placed in every single lot. So I'm not going to do anything to disappoint you guys. I don't want to tarnish our image or reputation. We don't want to create any sort of lower quality of life. The only thing that we get to offer you is we are standing with our communities and what we've done in our history over the past 40 years in building quality communities. Now, there is one thing that I will share with you, and this is to kind of get ahead of a question that could be coming, is the single-family attached portion that's here and how we build it as developers. Now, this is one of our communities. It is called Skybrook. It is in the Huntersville area. It's just north of Charlotte. It's a golf course community. It has 1,153 homes. It has patio homes with alleys. It has front-loaded townhomes. It has detached homes from 40 feet to 120 feet wide, with really homes that have been topping out in the resale market of over $1 million. So we have 3 townhome phases that are outlined in red here that are interwoven within the community in high prominent areas that are right next to single-family detached. So we hold high standards. These are the townhome products that are in our community now. We hold the high standards for all of our housing product. In the last 20 years, I have not seen any decrease in value or any quality of life. So Skybrook is a very high-quality, outstanding community, and we want to add another one in Southbrook and bringing that to Winterville. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, I've got a question or two. And I'm not really sure if this question is for you or for Brian more so, but I know in the packet that we got, there were some pieces here that kind of outlined everything that was, I guess, going with the subdivision, and I was looking at some of the residential restrictions in here, and it talked about access by non-property owners. It's on page 3 of this, and I'm just curious, does that mean that this is going to be a gated community?
Trying to find this section. To answer your question specifically, it's not going to be a gated community. All of these streets are going to be public streets.
Okay.
They will be accessed by anyone in the public that can drive on these roads. Yes, sir. And what you're referencing, that is that is the PUD document that will attach itself through the approval. We would have to follow this as the rules of the community, or rules of the approval.
Second question, how much more traffic is this going to throw out onto Laurie Ellis Road?
So at this stage, we're at the concept phase. To answer your question specifically, is we have another round that we'll go through a preliminary plat. This is to make sure that we line up with the vision of the town through this approval. If we line up and we approve the density and also the general layout, we're going to come through and do traffic mitigation plans. So all of you will have a lot more information in terms of how the layouts are specific, how much traffic will be added to this community, and how many phases. Because this is we're projecting a 10-year phase development. So we will have the opportunity when we study that with the traffic engineers to tell you how many we would be projecting and coming out over those 10-year period.
And the last thing I got is, being that you have so many open spaces, I'm assuming that the homeowners association is what's going to take care of maintaining those types of spaces and things, correct?
Absolutely. And just as a side note, I've had other conversations about HOAs, and we set them up for success for forever. So and if we're here for 10 years, we have a vested interest in making sure that this survives. Obviously, if we're marketing the site too, The site needs to be well-kept, looking good, and that needs to continue. Again, all of this is tied to our name, so I don't want to do anything that's going to come back and not be maintained or have some association that's not going to do what they're supposed to do. We will have a 38-page document of CC&Rs that specify very specifically about what they need to do and how they need to continue to uphold the community once we're out.
Will your company still be involved with the HOA once the subdivision is finished?
So we would have to go through a process of turning it over, but we have always been there as you call them counselors or whatever guidance that they wanted to see. We've always done that. Now, we have always left them financially very well off in which they can continue to maintain. But we will serve in whatever capacity we need to, even after we turn it over, to help bring in board members, owners, and that sort of thing to do what they need to do.
Yeah, because I've seen a few subdivisions that have, started out well, and 10 to 15 years down the road, the homeowners association has just kind of dwindled away, and the subdivision starts to look a little tacky and just kind of, goes to the bad. And, we want to make sure that this maintains well within the town over a long period of time. I mean, 'cause
I
it looks
couldn't
like
agree
a
with you
great
more.
idea to me.
Yep.
And I just want to see it keep its, beautification as long as possible.
I agree, absolutely.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Go ahead, the young lady down here.
I had a quick question. Well, actually, two. First question is, could you tell us a projected price point we're looking at for the family detached and the family attached?
So we won't start development, meaning the houses will be ready for another 2 years. And it's extremely difficult to project that, because if you'd asked me, what does the market look like 6 months ago, I would have told you it looks nothing like it does now, where price points go. So I don't have any idea, other than we know that these homes will be somewhere, if it's a ranch, it would be 1,800 square feet, and they would go all the way probably up to 3,500 square feet. You could look at that in terms of where your market is now and kind of make an adjustment for what Winterville would sell that for. But again, if we're talking about in 2 years, it's so hard to project what it would be. Obviously, we want it at the highest price. That helps everyone. It drives values up for everyone around us as well. So that's what we would look at.
Drives up taxes as well. I stay in Lori Ellis. I stay in Lori Meadows, so that's why I was asking that question. Okay. Do you anticipate trying to keep a particular price point off of the subdivisions near? Have you had a chance to look at the subdivisions near that area to try to stay within that price point, or is that something you?
It's hard to say. I haven't, I've looked and seen what you guys have provided and what's been built and what current communities are doing, but just to commit to it is extremely difficult. I wouldn't want to somebody to come back and say, 2 years ago you said.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, but
Well, your last appearance before town board was postponed for
No, that was a different one, I'm sorry.
that's okay. But I know what you're talking about.
Henry?
Scott, who determines what's going in the open areas, and do the homeowners have an input into that?
At that point, we'll probably have that figured out at the preliminary plat stage. So the owners are not likely going to be engaging. The owners will be coming along much later. So we're already establishing the open spaces, so they'll get to see what they're going to have.
So that's going on now. You're determining what's going to go there.
If we get approval. And really the things that I was saying earlier too, is about we're going to preserve whatever it is that we can that's significant to the site as much as we possibly can. I could tell you that there will be some sort of large improvement in that location there. But these other pocket parks, and I kind of had to turn away for a second. I'll flash up a lot. Sometimes this freaks people out. Nope, I might have missed it. What was my slide for open spaces? There. These are the types of open spaces that we have built in other communities, and I would see no reason why we would not duplicate those efforts in these communities as well. So if I'm trying to get people and pedestrians to go to those places, the areas that are a little larger will likely have some sort of improvement like this. The smaller ones may have a little bit more preservation, may have benches, whatever it is that's going to help draw people to go to those places and get together. That's what we're going to be about. And as you can see here, these are examples of covered areas. There's a community garden on the left, play area on the right. There's a large play field in the one in the upper right. It's got some cornhole. It's really kind of neat. And just, again, areas that are that user-in destination where we want people to go. That's what I was talking about with those areas that are outlined in black, really here, really kind of as we make it all throughout, with an opportunity to do something down here as well. So, thank you.
Any further questions from the board?
One there. Furnish on that design, is that going to take a lot of cooperation with the town to keep it maintained? See, there's a lot of trees, things of that sort. Would that be like part of the town?
Everything in green is going to be in the community open space, which will be maintained by the HOA. I'm not anticipating the town having any sort of maintenance responsibilities in anything in this community. Definitely don't want to add on to that. I don't know what you're talking, I wouldn't want to add on to that for the town.
Anybody else on the board? Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open this up to the public. Basically, I'd ask you if you come forward to state your name and your address, and I would ask that you limit your conversation to being for or against the rezoning.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to point your attention to the 4 handouts I gave each one of you guys at your seat. So this Mr. Abbott Hunsucker, Mr. Lewis Tripp, Mr. Bobby Edwards, and Mr. Jeff Stallings are all adjacent property owners, and they've all given written confirmation that they're in favor of this project. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, anybody in the public like to speak?
Hey, Brian, I have a question. Are these property owners or are they living in these?
A combination of so I think Jeff Stallings, don't quote me on that. Let's just call them property owners at this
Okay.
point. I don't want to give misinformation, but for a fact, they are property owners. So.
Anyone like to speak? Please step forward and speak into the microphone. Give us your name and address.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carissa Best. I live at 3198 Streamside in the Brookstone neighborhood. Over the past couple of years, I frequently walk my dog along a couple of my neighbors. We've noticed the streams as well as the wetland in our neighborhood has dried up and desiccated. This has led to a decrease in local wildlife, such as the American tree frog. There's a blue heron that comes to visit, and a couple of families of geese that have just not been around or decreased over the past couple of years. And I respect the conservation efforts made by you, Scott, and your team. However, I do reject this. As far as the density of the housing, we all do know that the typical building materials, they're prone to having a lot of pollen collected as well as mold. Increased density of those homes leads to more mold buildup, and it's hard to clean when the homes are too close together. So I don't know if that can be addressed. Okay, perfect. And then I have another concern, especially, I know you mentioned the traffic mitigation plan. There's a railroad that runs off of, give me one moment, I'm so bad with roads sometimes. But we all know the railroad that I'm talking about. Somebody help me out. You know the railroad that runs? 11, thank you, yes. And a lot of schools around this area, I just want to make sure that we take into account to widen the roads before we build the homes, because the people will come and they will move in. I lived in the RTP area for over a decade, and I've witnessed these homes being constructed and then the roadways being congested, primarily around morning traffic and afternoon traffic. So that is a deep concern of mine, of people not being able to get out of their neighborhood in an appropriate manner and having the traffic build up. And we want this area to grow, but we want to grow at a good rate. And I know you said there was a 10-year plan to develop the neighborhood. So make sure it doesn't happen too rapidly because of pest management as well with the wildlife that I mentioned earlier. They do have an aptitude or ability to start to infiltrate neighborhoods and infest homes. So I just want to make sure that that's taken care of and it's done, reduced, at a good rate. Just want that to take into consideration. I don't oppose or support it at this moment in time. I would need more information. And also, the local flora is a bit concerned that buffers a lot of the waterways in the wetlands on that property and properties surrounding the potential development at this point. Just want to make sure that's addressed.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
My name's Corbett Harris, live at 382 Holly Grove. One of the things that I saw in there was all the inter-cross connectivity, and each individual subdivision either has its own designated HOA, and with having open spaces and open priorities, we're talking about making this more of a community piece, and want to make sure that as this is incorporated as community, that the crossover between all the connectivities can be and will be enjoyed by all the individual neighborhoods coming together as one. And I'm not sure how that addresses to current HOA setup fees, current HOA bylaws, and to make sure that if there are permanent fixtures, let's say like a playground, like a open space, or a water feature that is put in, that can those adjoining subdivisions be encompassed into that as well. So I'm for this because I think it brings a great piece to Winterville, and I think it's planned out and more from the conservation piece. And I'm definitely looking forward to more information on that.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay. The public comments time is closed. Anyone have any comments on the board? Okay, what is the pleasure of the board for rezoning? Mrs. Claiborne makes a motion to approve the rezoning.
I'll second.
Mike seconds. Before we vote, are there any discussion on the board? Okay, would ask that all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Carried. Okay. Rezoning request is approved. Next item of business, reports from the staff.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So you guys saw my staff report. We're staying busy with single-family and attached family zoning permits. So you can see we're way above what we were this time last year. I think I reported that at the same scenario last month. But other than that, we're getting ready for the holiday season, so I think things will probably slow down a little bit, hopefully give us a little time to catch our breath. But other than that, I don't have anything for you, and I'd be happy to answer anything you guys have of me. Oh, wait, and Don's got something for you.
I did send each of you all an email about an event that's being sponsored by the town. Several of you have responded to me. If you have not, and you know tonight, just let me know on the way out, or please get back with me so we can make proper arrangements for that night. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Brian or Don? Okay, comments from the board? I don't have any comments. This is the first.
You've always got a comment.
I did
There,
actually.
good, thank you. Darlene.
I did have just an observation, and I'm sure that the residents received the notices for the zoning, but on several of the addresses that are listed for receiving the notice of this zoning, the Holly Grove subdivision or Holly Grove Street is listed on several addresses as Holly Grove, Groe. So I am hoping that those residents received it. Feel like they did, but
Yeah, I
just
think
being,
typically the post office would get them back to us if they're not able to forward to the address, and if they do, we'll make sure we correct those that get sent back to us.
I just think for the future, yeah, just in case they're in a database like that, yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions? Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
A
Mike?
second?
Mike and Darlene, okay. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn.
Christmas tree?
Good.
Yeah, I was trying to seem like I have so
Approved
many
it.
things
It's gonna be a good thing.
on the, yes. Oh, God. Second, the fourth, the sixth.
We had the first meeting I went to the morning meeting. We had two the same day. They had a heckler.
I enjoyed the comments. You know, can hear.
It must have been 25, 30 people in the morning meeting.
And that was something I wanted to do. No, you're good.
I got one.
And I think about that every time.
It is.
That I don't know that we do enough hearing. This has been some of the feedback, the real life consequences, be it on a large scale or small, you know? Right. How does it affect parents? How does it affect school traffic? How does it affect? Yeah. A left
Lined up to help me get her to the doctor's back. Might have canceled it last second, so I had to take one of it. How do we decide that? Anyway, I tried to make it. We're gonna make it.